Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, and Dalton Wasserman here with you guys once again for championship weekend. Dalton, let's go, baby. We only got 2 games we're talking about here on this preview show, but we're going to go as in-depthly as possible to see which one of these 4 teams are going to be competing for a Super Bowl trophy a couple weeks from now in San Francisco. How you doing, my friend?
I'm ready, Trev. I'm ready for a couple of really good games. There's a lot of intriguing storylines in both, and especially that NFC title game. You get round 3 between the Rams and the Seahawks. It feels like we were always destined to get there. And then we'll see if the Broncos can muster it up without Bo Nix against a hot Patriots team playing their first road playoff game this season. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with these 2 games.
I'm not going to mention the season standings that we have here for picking these games because, well, you're out of reach. Congratulations, my friend. You bested me in picking games this year. I cannot possibly catch you even if you pick none of the games right from here on out. So it's been fun, though. This has been fun to go back and forth with you, have a little bit of competition. But congrats. I'm not going to say it again because I'm already thinking about how to get you next year.
Feels good. Feels good, especially makes up for the fact that on the college side that Max beat me with the game picks this year. I think by somewhere, I don't know if it was close to that same spread, but that we have here. I got, just to throw the numbers at you, I got 8 games up on you with 3 to go. So feeling obviously good about that. But next year, I'm trying to win both shows, man. I'm trying to get the NFL and the college going.
You didn't have to tell the people that it was an 8-game lead. You didn't have to do that.
You could still,
I was trying to be nice. I was trying to congratulate you. You didn't have to do that to me.
You could still cut into it to make it look a little bit. Listen, 8 games off of what? Almost 300 out of almost 300. It's not that big a spread, Trevor. You know, it's kind of, and you still have ground you could make up if you want to differ on some of these picks.
This is true. We'll see. We'll see if I can. Yeah, maybe I'll just be different than you on all the games remaining to see how close that we can get it. So, okay, the games that we have this weekend. Obviously, it's Patriots and the Denver Broncos, and then we have, like you said, round 3 between the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to start with that AFC Championship game, and with that, we're actually going to start with our segment that we have with Terron Armstead, talking about the trench matchup specifically, because there's no Bo Nix in this game. So what is this Denver offensive line specifically going to do to help make sure that he is kept as upright as possible? And, of course, Terron played for Sean Payton himself. So let's hear what Terron had to say about this matchup before we dig into it ourselves. All right, we got our guy Terron Armstead back here with us to discuss another trench matchup that we have here in the postseason. Terron, this one means a lot because with the Broncos no longer having Bo Nix, that means that Jarrett Stidham is going to step up in his place. So we've got to talk about one of the better pass blocking units in the NFL. Some would say the best in Denver with the Broncos going up against the New England Patriots. So let's just start with the interior pressure because I think that's what really matters the most. New England, they're best when they've got Christian Barmore, Milton Williams pinning their ears back, getting after the quarterback. So as a former NFL offensive lineman yourself, how do you mitigate interior pressure? I know that you were more of a tackle, but like, man, when you've got 2 studs in the middle like New England does, it feels like that's how they generate a ton of their pressure. So as an offensive line, what do you think the Broncos are going to do schematically and just as a game plan to try to not let that quick interior pressure get to Jarrett Stidham in this game?
Yeah, for sure. The thing about that, Trev, when you have an interior guy that you have to pay close attention to or more attention to, that just means it's island time for your tackles. Luckily for Denver, they feel comfortable with that matchup, leaving Garrett Bowles, leaving McGlinchey out on the island to fend for themselves. Interior, on the interior, the center will be able to slide, more so to Milton Williams, but it helps that process when you have 2 tackles that you feel comfortable with, that the guard doesn't have to go out, bypass the 3 technique, get out to the defensive end. They can stay, put 4 hands on his D tackle. So in this scenario, this matchup, I believe it favors Denver.
So overall, thoughts on losing a quarterback like this? Honestly, I mean, like, you're the number 1 seed. You have an unbelievable season. You're hosting things. The playoffs go through Denver. You're 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And then something like this happens. Quarterback, we know, is just the most important position in the game. And so for this to happen to your starting quarterback who's been your guy all year long, what's this do to the locker room? Like, you played for Sean Payton coached teams before. Like, what do you think that Sean Payton's saying to these guys? I know they're obviously going to say, hey, we're focused. Just because Bo's down, we're not giving up on our dream of winning a Super Bowl. I get all of that, but it's a lot easier to say that in front of the media than to necessarily believe that. But do you think that this group believes that wholeheartedly? What do you just think about that locker room going through that quarterback change?
It's a challenge, bro. It's a challenge. It's adversity. It makes the story sweeter. You know what I mean? And it's tough. It sucks. You lose your franchise quarterback. You lose your starting guy. The guy that just went toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and got it done, you know? But I know Sean Payton closely, very well. Was with him for 9 years. He doesn't dwell on excuses or built-in excuses, which is why he announced Bo Nix's injury post-game. He didn't want to wait till Wednesday or Thursday, and now everybody feels sorry for the Broncos. No, let's get ahead of it. It's steady season. We believe in them. It's important for the Broncos to start fast. If they can come out fast and start fast, get early points, generate some confidence, that belief is strong in Denver. I have Will Lutz joining the set tomorrow. He talked about everything that's going on in the locker room, everything that's going on in the facility, and those guys truly believe they're going to get it done Sunday. Like, no question about it, no false enthusiasm. This is a real strong belief, and I believe in them as well.
Last thoughts, just overall on these two matchups that we got. We got the Rams and the Seahawks, part 3. Series tied 1-1, and now we get this third game here. And then obviously we've talked a little bit already about Denver and New England. Just your thoughts overall on these being the final 4 teams, and any thoughts that you've had on these matchups and these teams getting to this point.
It's fire, bro. It's fire. It's a storybook. We get Seahawks, Rams, round 3, heavyweight bout. They split regular season 1-1. Both games could have went either way. In my opinion, I said this before the playoffs started, the Rams are the only team in the NFC that can beat the Seahawks. The only team. And now we're blessed with a chance to watch that matchup again. The Broncos and Patriots, I think the Broncos D-line have a chance to impact this game in a way that completely changes the dynamic. In a way that the Eagles did against the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. They have the opportunity, they have the roster, they have the talent to do so. I think they will need that type of performance to get it done with Bo Nix being out. So that's the matchup I'm watching. Broncos D-line versus Patriots O-line.
Man, like you said, the playoffs have gifted us with 2 unbelievable matchups here, man. I really think any combination of these 4 teams, I know people are going to say with Bo Nix no longer being there, but like if the Broncos show up and they win this game against the Patriots, that will have meant that Jarrett Stidham did something, that he stood up, and obviously he was complimentary to what is one of the best rosters in the NFL. So any combination of these 4 teams, I think is going to make for a very exciting Super Bowl. Terron, we appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. That's Terron's take on the game. Dalton, what's your take on the game? Where are we starting here? As we have the last couple of weeks breaking down both sides of the ball, the run game and the pass game, and then, of course, what the defenses are going to do to go up against it. Where do you want to start for Patriots versus Broncos here?
I'm going to go with Denver's offense. And actually, I'm not as concerned about Sean Payton having Jarrett Stidham ready to play. I think he's going to be ready to play, and there's a long history that you're going to go over of Sean Payton having backup quarterbacks prepared to go and win games, right? But I'm a little more concerned about this Broncos run game, and honestly, they just haven't gotten it done lately, and they haven't been able to go to it and lean on it heavily lately to control the pace of the game, right? And that really coincides with J.K. Dobbins' injury that he suffered in Week 10. And since Week 11, you look at Denver's designed rushing attack here, okay? 26 in rushing grade, just 3.5 yards per design carry since Week 11. Last in the league in yards after contact per carry, 19th in explosive run rate. Now, the question is will Dobbins be back for this game? Because they've opened his practice window, and that could make a huge difference because it's not on the offensive line. Quinn Miners and Garrett Bowles and those guys, they've been run blocking very well all season, even into the postseason here, but they just haven't been able to get enough out of R.J. Harvey and Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Bidet in the backfield. J.K. Dobbins really was the workhorse for them early in the season. If he can be healthy and play at all in this game, even give him just 10 to 12 carries, maybe Denver can control the pace of the game a little little bit better and not ask Stidham to carry them like Nix was carrying them without an efficient run game. I think keep an eye on that injury, that Dobbins injury and recovery watch here as the week goes on. If he can play, I think it could make a big difference in Sean Payton's offensive game plan here with Stidham in the game.
Yeah, you talked about some of the success, or teased a little bit of some of the success that Sean Payton has had as the head coach for the Saints when it comes to backup quarterbacks. So if you go back to 2021, that was Sean Payton's last year when he was in New Orleans. That year, he started Jameis Winston, Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill, and Ian Book. All of those quarterbacks got starts throughout the year. Winston got 7, Siemian had 4. Hill got 9 total, sort of with the other positions that he plays, but he played a little bit of quarterback as well. And then Ian Book got 1. Those combined quarterbacks went 293 for 500 on 503 attempts, 3,186 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns to just 13 passing interceptions, and an 87.4 passer rating. That's not too bad for a backup quarterback, especially the mix of guys and the just different types of quarterbacks that are there. Then, of course, I think the one that's famous is the 2019 season when Teddy Bridgewater had to come in for 5 games, went 5-0 during that stretch, had a 67.9% adjusted completion percentage, 1,384 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions, and a 99.1 passer rating from Teddy Bridgewater during those 5 games. Sean Payton has the ability to get any quarterback ready. He's one of the best coaches over the last 2 decades. Hall of Fame cases are always really weird with head coaches, but I feel like he's just one of the best head coaches in the game, again, over the last 20 years. And anytime that's the case, I would say that he's got a good case for the Hall of Fame, especially for as much success as he had with Drew Brees, those dominant times in New Orleans. Obviously, they've got the Super Bowl trophy as well. And certainly what he's doing now in Denver is just sweetening that deal for him to become a future Hall of Famer. But he is that kind of coach. So you mentioned that, hey, it can't be the same offense that it was with Bo Nix, at least from a run game perspective. I don't think it's going to be the same game from a passing perspective either, because you looked at last week's game, and that was an opportunity where I felt like the Broncos had a chance to really run the ball, right? The Bills have struggled in that regard. They've struggled to defend the run this season. They haven't really been consistent in that regard. We've talked about how good Sean McDermott had been over the last couple of weeks at disguising coverages and getting his guys to execute things really well to where the quarterback doesn't know exactly what they're seeing. And so everything last week against the Bills sort of pointed towards them leaning much more into the run game, and they did not. So that meant that Bo Nix had to have the ball in his hands a lot in that game. I just don't think that you can ask that of Jarrett Stidham. Maybe they're going to, but to me, that would just be such a shock. They have to lean more into the run game, and it feels as though over the last, a couple of months maybe, there have been opportunities throughout the regular season and then in the postseason where we've said, okay, this is where they're going to lean into the run game. Okay, this is the matchup where it makes sense for them to lean more into the run game, and they've just been reluctant to do so. Now, Bo Nix could be a very big reason why, in a positive standpoint, where Sean Payton has just said, hey, we want to put the ball in this guy's hands. But this is sort of where the rubber meets the road of okay, well, now you're starting Jarrett Stidham in the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots. You kind of have to run the football more than you have throughout the course of this season. That's just what I think. Maybe they don't believe that, but I think it's going to be a steady dose of Courtland Sutton. They're going to get Marvin Mims in there just like they did last week with him being the most productive receiver on the team. It's still going to be diverse, but I think they're going to run a lot more of it through Courtland Sutton, and then we'll see what the run game ends up being like for the Broncos. For the Patriots run game, I think that the Patriots run game is very interesting because when you look at the last couple of weeks for them, 87.5 rushing grade for this team on outside zone. That's been the best rushing concepts that they've been able to execute over the last couple of weeks. I noticed for a handful of them, they'll use Hunter Henry not attached to the line of scrimmage, not even as a wingback, but in the slot, and they will run his direction on outside zone. So they already have that sort of athletic lead blocker, if you will, blocking in space. And I saw a couple of plays where a lot of times it was Ramondre Stevenson, who's been their highest graded rusher, who was able to execute really good run plays out of that sort of design. And then Dalton, I also saw them using Jack Westover from an I formation, running these outside zones and having him be that lead blocker. So it's not a puller, it's not a split zone, it's not even having a tight end, shift to the outside and execute a block in space. It is a guy from an I formation, from an offset I at times, just sprinting straight towards whoever that linebacker is that's entering wherever they're trying to go for outside zone, or maybe it's a nickel defender who is in that spot, and Jack Westover is just going straight to him. And again, it's a lead blocker, but it's a lead blocker with a ton of momentum who doesn't have to sift through that chaos, even if it's behind the line of scrimmage. So they've used 12 snaps where they've run outside zone with Westover from that I formation as a lead blocker, and I think that that's something that they've done very, very well. Now, it's interesting because Denver has a lot of guys who have been able to defend the run pretty well in the secondary. And so this is a really good matchup in that regard, because I think the Patriots are going to continue to try to do that. They're going to try to get to the outside. They're going to try to run outside zone, but Denver's been pretty good at defending it. And specifically, if you're running outside zone, you got an athletic guy like Nick Bonito who might be able to slip some of those blocks as those offensive linemen are getting lateral and getting to the sideline, just getting away from where the trenches are at the snap. It's going to be an interesting sort of chess matchup in that regard, but I think the Patriots are going to try to do it, or at least start the game running a lot of outside zone, and they're just going to see how the Broncos respond to it.
For sure. I think Josh McDaniels wants to have balance in this offense, and I think they've done a good job of really kind of grinding their way in the run game through two really good defenses they've played so far in the Chargers and Texans. You saw the run game really start to come alive in the fourth quarter against Houston, and Ramondre Stevenson had a great game against the Chargers 2 weeks ago. So I think that is going to be an emphasis in this Denver defensive line. Look, Denver doesn't give up a ton of explosive runs, but a lot of their defensive linemen with run defense grades below a 65, you can break through that first level if you can execute, and that's really what it's about in the playoffs, keeping yourself on schedule, keeping Drake May in good situations where he won't be in those third and longs, right? So I do think Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson still play a very, very big part in New England's game plan here, because you don't want to be in too many obvious passing situations against this Denver defense.
Okay, so Patriots pass game. What are we talking about here? What are we looking forward to seeing with Drake May? And it feels like just such a diverse passing attack that can do so many different things at different times, going up against a really strong Denver secondary.
I'm going to go with a similar angle as I did last week with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, and now with Drake May in this game. You have to be able to beat man coverage if you're going to beat Denver. They run the second highest rate of man coverage in the NFL, and Drake May's kind of statistical profile really kind of mirrors Josh Allen's a little bit when you talk about some struggles as a passer, but his legs make him very dangerous as well. Look, Drake May, just a 64.1 passing grade against man coverage this year. Now, it's been a bit up and down because he leads the league in yards per attempt. He's thrown the third most touchdowns against man coverage, but also the most turnover-worthy plays in the NFL. So when you talk about Drake May and some of his struggles against man, you really start to see him struggle when he gets unsure of himself in the pocket, when he has to, get to his second and third read and he just doesn't see that his first one is separating the way that he wants to, right? Or he's holding onto the football too long in the pocket and just not deciding to scramble early enough. Now, the man coverage makes him dangerous as a runner, as we know, because when you have all those guys in the back end of man coverage, everybody's back is turned. They're not looking at the quarterback, and just like Josh Allen, May has taken advantage on the ground all season. Plus, if you get Denver in some of these blitz looks and these five-man rushes with man coverage behind it, Drake May has been running well against the blitz all year as well. So I think his legs do play a big factor, and expect if they're gonna win this game, you're gonna get a big game out of Stephon Diggs. He's been a top 10 receiver in the NFL this year against man coverage. He's been the main target that's won those one-on-one matchups. Veteran receiver, still so crafty at what he does outside as a route runner. I think he's gonna play a big factor. Demario Douglas had the big touchdown against man-to-man coverage last week against Houston. Drake May is gonna have to stay patient but be decisive when it comes to, one, running the ball when he doesn't have anybody open, and two, picking out the best matchups as quickly as he can. If that's Diggs, if it's Douglas, if it's Kayshon Boutte vertically down the field, he's going to have to be able to drive the ball into tight man coverage windows against a really good group of cornerbacks in this game.
It just makes me feel like a guy like Kyle Williams or Pop Douglas are just, they're going to have a day, or they're just going to have the big play that not enough people were expecting, or the difference, the X factor type of a play, whether it's a touchdown or just a big gain or something like that. I feel as though the way that Denver's defense is set up, they're so great to take away a lot of your top options, whether it's the receivers or the tight ends. And I feel like the depth of the Patriots' passing options is going to be a strength of theirs in this game, and I think that could really be an X factor. So who are you picking, Patriots or Broncos here?
I'm going to go with the Patriots. I have New England 24-20. Now, I don't think just because Jarrett Stidham is playing that this is going to be some sort of blowout. New England's going to walk in there and this is going to be easy. This is still a fantastic defense that they're playing against, a very dangerous pass rush that can turn the game upside down at any moment. And I think Stidham is going to actually come out and play relatively well. I think Sean Payton's going to have him ready to go. He's done this with backup quarterbacks before, like you mentioned. I think you're going to get a good football game here. But at the end of the day, for me, the biggest problem is I don't know what I'm getting out of Denver's run game, right? And if this entire game is on Jarrett Stidham like it has been on Bo Nix so often, I just don't know that he'll be able to make enough plays to overcome the lack of a run game. And one thing we have to remember with Stidham, too, that might actually be the biggest difference between him and Nix, he's not going to make plays outside the pocket as often as Nix did. So I'm going to take New England to squeak out a close victory on the road here, but I do think the Broncos are going to be ready to play, and they're going to play a really good game, especially on defense.
I think the Patriots are going to win this game. And I'm sort of torn between two storylines of this game. It's either like Patriots 23-17 or it's something like Patriots 24-23. Because ultimately the reason why I'm taking the Patriots here is because I believe that Jarrett Stidham can also have a good game. I think that for 3 quarters, maybe even into the 4th quarter, this could be a decent enough performance from him to complement whatever they could do in the run game. Really, it's going to come down to that offensive line complementing the run game, to be honest, and how much they can lean into it, but also just what the defense is going to be able to do. The problem is that whether they're up in the game by one score or they're down by 1 score, I just don't know if Jarrett Stidham's going to be the guy who can march you down the field and score a touchdown. March you down the field and get into field goal range? Sure, I could see that in the end. If the situation calls for it, I could see Denver being able to do that. But if he's got to march down the field and score a touchdown, I just don't have that type of faith in Jarrett Stidham, and I would for Drake May. Whereas, if this game is, again, 23-17, Denver's up, and Drake May's got 1 drive to do it, I got faith in Drake May to do it. So ultimately, I am siding 2 good teams. I'm siding 2 great coaches as well, but I'm going to side with the better quarterback here, and I'm going to go Patriots. I'll say 23-17 is my final score there. Our game plan of the week, presented by Western Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Game plan of the week, I'm going to go with one of the talking points that I had a little bit earlier, and that's I wonder how effective this outside zone run game can continue to be for the New England Patriots. It's a secondary and just an overall fast defense that the Broncos have, and they've been able to defend the run pretty well once you get outside of the tackle box. But it's when you have the tight end in a really great spot as a big slot type of receiver that turns into a blocker in space, or Jack Westover being that lead blocker out of I formations when they're running outside zone, that I think is going to be very, very intriguing to see how Denver can really defend that. So that is my game plan of the week there. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should as well. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps you protect you and your family so you can focus on winning today, knowing that tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out, building your dynasty, or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. And it might not be a full slate of games for you guys to be able to bet, but of course there are 2 games going on, so there's a lot of betting that's going to be going on. If you are a bettor yourself and you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, then you are missing out on the new player prop tool that we have over at PFF, and you haven't seen it yet, you got to check it out.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff. Because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
You guys can see the player prop tool and so much more that comes with a PFF Plus subscription. If you don't have one, subscribe.pff.com. Get you all the grades, all the numbers, the things that we're talking about here on this show. The player prop tool will have the free agency tool, the fully unlocked mock draft simulator. The list goes on and on. So check it out if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription already. Let's get into part 3, Rams and Seahawks. Dalton, this game's gonna rule. There's just no other way around it. I mean, the things that the Rams do really well, the Seahawks defend really well against. There's no obvious. There's no obvious here. A lot of times that we've done this show throughout the year, and quite frankly, it's not often you get two teams that are this good matched up in the regular season, although this time, obviously, we got it 2 times already between these two teams. But there's often like, okay, this team can't really defend the run between the tackles, or, all right, this team really struggles against one-on-one matchups on the outside. Okay, well, I don't know if this team can handle this team's speed. These are just 2 of the best teams in the NFL, the best rosters, constructed so well, offensive and defensive player of the year caliber types of players, great coaches, all of that stuff. So where are we starting with this one? What do you want to hit on first? Seahawks side of things, Rams side of things, pass game, run game. Let's start the conversation.
We are going to start with the potential league MVP in Matthew Stafford, of course, right? And I think you're talking about maybe the best quarterback in football this year going against possibly the best defense in football this year. And what I was curious with Seattle shutting down everybody in the pass game lately, except for that win over the Rams and Matthew Stafford in Week 16, I wanted to go back to that game especially and see what was working, right? And Seattle lately has been going to a lot of too high shells in coverage. They're really keeping things in front of them and playing, I think, a lot more basic style coverages and even fronts up front with the way that they've structured their defense and just preventing explosive plays while they can defend the run with 7 in the box, right? So what Matthew Stafford did in that game was really dominate the middle of the field, and he's dominated the middle of the field all season. When you look at him throwing between the numbers, he's got the best passing grade in the NFL, 4th highest yards per attempt, 19 big-time throws this year, Trevor, between the numbers. 6 more than any other quarterback in the league. Now, the Seahawks, between the numbers, have the highest coverage grade in the league, right? When you talk about how well their linebackers have played, Ernest Jones and Drake Thomas, right? And Nicky Manwari is kind of that pseudo third linebacker, right? Julian Love and Kobe Bryant, the 2 safeties back there, I think they play a huge role in this game. But when you look at what worked for the Rams last time, a lot of in-cuts, attacking the intermediate level of the field in between that second and third layer of the defense. It wasn't necessarily the Rams getting over the top. It was attacking in front of those safeties, behind those linebackers, and Matthew Stafford just making excellent throw after excellent throw. That was Seattle's worst game of the year, defending the middle of the field. But I think they're going to make Stafford attack that area again, right? You don't want free access over the top on these deep shots for Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua and all the other threats that the Rams have at wide receiver, right? Guys like Tutu Atwell who can get behind you. I think what the Seahawks are going to have to do on defense is decide. Now, most likely, they're still going to sit back in too high and make Stafford throw in front of them. But I do wonder, especially about the 2 safeties, Love and Bryant, if they're going to have to come up and drive on some of these in-breaking routes a little more often, right? Where Stafford had too much access to that part, that intermediate middle of the field area that he was thriving in last time. I wonder if you have the safeties drive on those routes more and make Stafford throw it over the top against this defense. Is he going to have enough time to do it, right? I think there's also an element to this where with Mike McDonald, how do you want to pressure Stafford? Because watching that last game as well, I'm going, look, stop blitzing him. It's not going to work. You're giving him bigger windows. He knows where it's coming from. He's one of the savants of the game at this position at this point at 37 years old. So do you stay with a standard rush and try to make him hold the football? And then do you drive on those in-breaking routes more often and make him beat you over the top and take that chance? I think there's so many elements of Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay against Mike McDonald in this game, in this passing game, that are going to be so much fun to watch, because we've seen stretches of games where Seattle's won that battle and they've really shut it down. We've also seen stretches like in that second matchup where Stafford was winning that battle and creating explosive plays and controlling the middle of the field the way that no one else has done on the Seahawks. I think it's a fascinating battle between the best quarterback in football this year and the best defense in football this year.
Yeah, and that area of this game specifically is so interesting, because even if the Rams come out, start playing one way, if it doesn't work, Stafford and McVay are good enough to change it up. Sometimes you get these quarterback and coaching combinations where you go, okay, this was our game plan during the week. This is what we tried to run. This is what we wanted to emphasize. And you come out on Sundays or whenever the game is, and you go, okay, that's actually not working the way that we thought it was. And you make little tweaks here and there, but ultimately the game plan is going to pretty much stay the same. Matthew Stafford, sort of like you mentioned, talented enough, and McVay's playbook is deep enough where they can go to so many different things. And so it's not just about getting the better of Matthew Stafford and the Rams' original game plan, what they want to do. This is a quarterback and a coaching combination that you truly have to stop for 60 minutes. Sometimes you get into overtime, and it's got to be even more than that. So that is a fascinating part of this. The Rams' run game, how can it be complementary towards what Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and those guys are doing in the passing game? Well, it's interesting because I just talked about how diverse the Rams' offense is in the passing game. It's also very diverse in the run game. Now, it's not the most explosive run game in the world, but they can do a lot of different stuff. When you look at Week 11 and Week 16, the weeks that they faced the Seattle Seahawks, outside zone and inside zone, so getting the offensive line to move a little bit, get a little bit lateral. Obviously, outside zone's a lot more lateral, but getting them to move a little bit more laterally, that is something that they had the most success with against the Seahawks earlier in the season. However, last week, and what we've seen from this team over the last, I would say, 2 years now, I feel like it's been the movement for the Rams. Man blocking concepts, just straight downhill, get between the tackles, letting these guys be bulldozers, combo blocks, duo blocks, just really just getting down the field in between the tackles. They're not afraid to do that as well. So what do they do against this Seahawks team? I think they're going to lean more to that zone run scheme, even though they know how to really punch you in the mouth. Maybe they come out and they start doing that initially because they want to be able to set the tone, and they don't want to give Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy and DeMarcus Lawrence and those guys the ability to shoot the gaps. Like I think it was the Seahawks that had tweeted this out, where Leonard Williams was talking about how he was getting in the backfield recently, and Gray Zabel actually came up to him. He's like, "Hey, they're slanting a certain direction, like they're moving, they're sliding a certain way. Why don't, when they slide, boom, just go straight forward? You're in the backfield right off the bat." And so they changed that, and Leonard Williams then was able to get in the backfield with a little bit more regularity to hold them off from being able to do that. Maybe you start the game plan and you say, "Hey, we've got the strength, we've got the ability to have a real good downhill run game. Let's start with that, and then the majority of our plan will be more of that inside and outside zone that we will get to in the second, third, fourth quarters, things like that." Leonard Williams, Ernest Jones, Byron Murphy, specifically, their worst run defense grades have come against those outside zone blocking concepts. DeMarcus Lawrence has been great, but basically against every single run concept. Nicky Manwari is obviously great with outside zone. Devon Witherspoon is as well. So it's not like it's a true weakness of the Seahawks, and that's why I started our conversation by saying there's not really this glaring like, well, the Seahawks don't do this very well. There's not a lot of that. You're trying to find the smallest margin or area that maybe they're not just elite at that you might be able to manipulate a little bit so for Seattle, nothing is an easy task here, but I wonder if the Rams kind of go into it with that game plan. Let's try to push the defensive line. Let's try to run downhill to start the game, knowing that we want to set that up to get on the outside more often as the game goes on. Because what's interesting enough, Dalton, is people have talked about Puka Nacua so much, and of course what he does in the receiving game, the contested catches, winning one-on-one, all that great stuff. He is one of the best run-blocking wide receivers in the NFL. Well, he has a 79.6 run-blocking grade against every team in the NFL except the Seattle Seahawks, in which those 2 weeks that they played this season, he had just a 60.3 run blocking grade. Now, that's not terrible, but it's not as impactful as it is against other teams. And so all that to say, that's kind of my scope on what I think the Rams are going to do in the run game. It's kind of going to come down to execution, as maybe lame as that is to say. Like, Kyren Williams just has to be great after contact, because we know he's going to get this defensive line with Seattle's too good. Their linebackers are too good. Nicky Manwari's too good. Devon Witherspoon, he's too good. You've just got to be able to. We're not going to be able to manufacture all of these yards before contact. Not against Seattle. It's just not going to happen. Does Kyren get you a healthy amount of yards after contact in this game to get you those first downs, to get you those second and third and manageables, to get you into the end zone on short yardage situations? I think, to be honest, around all the game planning that goes on, that's what it's going to come down to. What is Kyren Williams' yards after contact average at the end of that game? And I think it'll tell a big story of what happened in the Rams run game.
I agree. When you look at what Seattle does so well in run defense, they're so fast, they're so athletic, and they prevent explosives, right? Because they have really good run defenders at all three levels, right? The defensive line is big, and they've got elite run stoppers, a linebacker unit, plus Nicky Manwari. They fly to the football. And then you got defensive backs like Devon Witherspoon who are willing to tackle within the box, right? So they don't give up a whole lot of explosive runs. And you're right. I think two things that to me are very important. One, it cannot be overstated, the return of Kevin Dotson last week against the Bears and how dominant he is. He's one of the top 10 run-blocking offensive linemen at any position in the league. It makes a huge difference when he's on the field, and that level of physicality that he brings in any of those concepts that you talked about. And two, I think Sean McVay's got to commit to it, right? I think he's got to stick with it. I thought early in the Bears game last week, he didn't stick with the run game early in the first half, and when they found momentum in the fourth quarter, it was because they were blowing open 5, 6, 7-yard runs for Kyren Williams to work with. Was it flashy in harsh conditions? Absolutely not, but this offense is at its best. Even with the MVP at quarterback, even with the best receiver in football at wide receiver, they still need balance in this offense. They've got to establish that level of physicality, because you know what opens up those intermediate windows, like I mentioned? Play action. And if you can make Seattle at least respect your run game to a certain extent, especially at that second level, that linebacker level, then you talk about opening those windows just a little bit wider for Matthew Stafford to work with. So you're right, it's very important. You might not get a lot of explosive runs, but you've got to establish the physicality up front. The return of Dotson is huge, but McVay has got to stick with it. He's got to be patient with it and make sure it's a big part of his offense in this game.
What about Seattle's run game? Let's talk about their run game first before we talk about their passing game in a minute.
So this is one where I focus more on personnel, because obviously Clint Kubiak loves his 12 personnel, 2 tight ends being on the field. Obviously A.J. Barner has been so good all year. Guys like a veteran and Eric Saubert, if they have Elijah Arroyo back healthy, that can help as well. But when you look at the Seahawks in 12 personnel, they lead the league with a 91.7 rushing grade. They lead the league with 5.5 yards per carry. They're the best 12 personnel rushing team in the league, and they're getting better as the season goes on, as their offensive line has gotten a lot better the last month. Gray Zabel and Abraham Lucas. We'll see if Charles Cross is healthy. That's going to be a big factor in this game, both in the run and pass game. But I look at this team getting in heavy personnel, and then you look at the Rams against 12 personnel. We have seen the cracks lately, right? And their response generally, you talk about so many teams getting in base to match 2 tight ends on the field, right? But for the Rams, that's not a third linebacker. It's a 5th defensive lineman. We talked about this a bit with the Bears last week. Now, when they had 5 defensive linemen on the field against the Bears, pretty good job. Held them under 4 yards per carry. When they had 4 defensive linemen out there, it was a lot worse than that. I think it was 9 carries for close to 80 yards that the Bears had when the Rams had 4 defensive linemen on the field. So what you're looking at, to me, okay, the Rams against 12 personnel, 19th in run defense grade, and they've allowed the second most yards per carry, 5.6. What's going to happen here is, one, can the Seahawks offensive line play as physically as they have the last couple weeks, okay? And it's a lot different when you're talking about the difference between the Rams defensive line and the 49ers, okay? So you've got a lot tougher task here. 2, can you beat the second level to the spot, right? Especially those 2 linebackers, Nate Landman and Omar Spates, right? And number 3, Kenneth Walker now as the only back really that's going to be relied upon in this backfield, right? He's going to have to carry this load. With Zach Charbonnet done for the rest of the season, it's going to be on Kenneth Walker to prove, look, listen, man, you're going to be a free agent this offseason. You want to make this money? You got to break some tackles and create explosive runs against a really good defense. The last thing I would say, I wonder if Sam Darnold has the freedom at the line of scrimmage against lighter fronts when the Rams are in nickel and even dime, and they've played a lot of dime against Seattle this year. Does he have the freedom at the line of scrimmage to check into run calls when the Rams are in a lighter box? Because that's when they get exposed, is when they don't have that 5th defensive lineman out there, especially if they're playing 4 against Seattle's 12 personnel. There's a lot in the play calls that are going to go into this for Clint Kubiak, and I think potentially there's a lot of checks that Sam Darnold can make into optimal run calls at the line of scrimmage. You're going to get a really fun battle in the trenches, both just like last week against the Bears, both physically and with the schemes that are coming along with it.
Well, Dalton, the problem with that, because I completely agree with you. Like that's what Sam Darnold kind of needs, the ability to be able to check into those runs versus lighter boxes. But I went back and this morning I was watching a lot of those Seattle games against the Rams earlier this season, because I saw the numbers: 46.5 passing grade, 37.8 passing grade under pressure, 32.0 passing grade versus the blitz in those games against the Rams that he has had earlier this year. And a lot of times, you mentioned like, okay, if there's a lighter box, does he have the ability to check into it? The problem is that Chris Shula has been so good at one-look pre-snap versus what you end up seeing post-snap. There were so many times when I watched where it was like mugged looks where there's 6 guys, there's 5-6 guys like on the line of scrimmage, these linebackers, these stand-up guys. You have no idea where the pressure's coming from. That doesn't look like a light box to you. You know, if you got 5, 6, 7 guys crowding the line of scrimmage, that doesn't look like a light box for you. But then the ball gets snapped, only 4 are coming, but they're coming from different directions. Sometimes there were only 3 defensive linemen that were coming, but it involved like a really good execution of a stunt on one side and then just one guy really bull rushing with a ton of momentum on the other. And then what I saw consistently on those bad Sam Darnold plays against the Rams, the coverage was built in a way where it could still be so aggressive to when Sam Darnold was loading up to throw the football. Sometimes it was corners being in off coverage and just having enough space where they felt like they could trigger downhill and get an interception. But a lot of other times it was the safeties. It was safety rotations where Cam Curl or Cam Kinchins or Quentin Lake or whoever it is was almost just given freedom to roam. Hey, just what we got everything else handled. We've got enough guys in coverage. And then you designate one of those guys to just say, roam the field. Watch his eyes. Aggressively come downhill on like the first route that you think that he is going to throw in the progression, whether it's the first one, the second one, whatever. And you just have a player that is totally roaming the middle of the field that Darnold is late to see or doesn't quite see. Like, it was just, I feel as though the Rams offense gets talked about a ton because, of course, they've got a player who could win Offensive Player of the Year in Puka Nacua. And a quarterback in Matthew Stafford who could win MVP. But on the defensive side of the ball, the pre-snap looks to then post-snap confusion for a lot of quarterbacks, Sam Darnold included, has been a masterclass this year from the Rams. And so I don't want people going into this game thinking like, oh, like Seattle's defense is the one that we have to talk about. Seattle's defense is worthy of all of the praise that it gets. But when we say that these are 2 very evenly matched teams, we mean it on both sides of the ball. And what the Rams were doing to just really rattle Sam Darnold over those 2 weeks that they played them in Week 11 and Week 16, I just thought was really, really impressive. Who are you going with in this game? Who are you picking? Seattle? Or are you taking the Rams?
One more thing on Sam Darnold here, and you mentioned it with the rotations, and I think there's 2 problems that the Rams defense causes him. Number 1, a lot of 2-high shells, which we've talked about earlier in the season. 2,
sometimes it was 3 high. Sometimes a 3-high shot. I saw one of the plays. I can't remember if it was an interception or if it was just a turnover where they played for him. But they had 3 safeties, Dalton, lined up like in between the hashes. So it's like, okay, I have no idea where this is going the second the ball hits my hands. And I think one of them turned into a robber, one of them went deep, and the other one ended up covering, I think, a wide receiver like in man coverage, like immediately buzzed down and picked up a wide receiver in man. So, yes, deep safeties. I just wanted to point that out. When I saw that play, I was just like, gee, what are you supposed to do against this? You don't even know where these guys are going.
2, the Rams run the 3rd highest rate of simulated pressures in the NFL, which causes Darnold some problems, especially you mentioned post-snap rotation. That's not just with the safeties. That is up front also in figuring out who's dropping off the line of scrimmage. Over the last 2 years, just a 61.6 passing grade when you have a simulated pressure on for Sam Darnold. Bottom 10 in the NFL, and the Rams do this at a very high rate. It's a reason he has struggled with them in the 4 times that he has played them over the last 2 years. So that's going to be big, him deciphering coverages post-snap. And I do think this game does in part come down to which quarterback can handle those 2 high looks and throw into the intermediate part of the field better. I think that's one factor. I think either team that has balance and gets the run game going obviously is going to be a big factor. Seattle has a decided advantage in special teams. That's somewhere the Rams have really struggled all season, and Rashid Shaheed, especially as the kick and punt returner now for Seattle's made a big difference since they traded for him. I'm going to go with the Seahawks, 27-24. I think the big thing that sticks with me with this matchup, number one, honestly, if this game was in LA, I probably do take the Rams. So the Seahawks, the home field advantage, I do think helps. Sam Darnold has to protect the football if they're going to win this game. They lost the turnover battle in each of the first 2 games. You want to even that out a little bit more. And I think the other factor that sticks the most, right now Seattle's playing their best football. For the better part of a month and a half, the Rams have not been playing their best football, in the secondary especially. And in these 2 playoff games, Matthew Stafford has not quite looked like himself. He's going to have to find it again, that MVP form, if they're going to win this game, because he might be the only quarterback in football this season that can score consistently on the Seahawks defense, but not the way that he's played the last 2 weeks. I'm going to ride the hot hand. I think Seattle looks like the best team right now. Give me the Seahawks at home.
I don't think it would be right if we both pick the same team in this matchup. I'm taking the Rams. I'll take the Rams at the exact same score that you predicted, 27-24. I'll just flip it. I think it's a gift that we get this matchup here. I'm going with the better quarterback that I think is the better quarterback. Maybe won't be the better quarterback in this game. Like you mentioned, he struggled a little bit lately. And yet, Matthew Stafford, you're right, hasn't looked as good as he did in the beginning and middle parts of the season. And yet, here they are. Winners of 2 in a row on the road. And that's because that even the worst of Matthew Stafford still gives you a chance to beat really good teams, even in the postseason. So this is my favorite football game that we have previewed the entire year, which is a fitting way to wrap up our championship week coverage here. Winners of these 2 matchups, of course, go to the Super Bowl. Appreciate everybody watching this preview and all the other previews that we've had throughout the entire year. Obviously, we're going to have plenty of Super Bowl coverage. We're going to do the recap show as well that you guys have come to expect here on this channel. We'll do the recap show, and then we'll give you plenty of Super Bowl preview stuff. We're shooting for a watch-along, by the way, of the Super Bowl that we're going to do in a couple of weeks. Anybody that caught the National Championship watch along with Dalton and Max, that was a ton of fun to watch and hang out with those guys virtually as they were watching the game. We're going to try to do something similar to when we have the Super Bowl, and so you guys can watch the game and react to all that good stuff with this. If you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, like I've said a couple of times during this show, subscribe.pff.com is the easy way to be able to do that. We've got a ton of draft coverage coming to you guys over the next week. I'm going to be in Dallas for the Shrine Bowl, so there's going to be all sorts of practice footage and updates there from Dallas. And then Max, Dalton, the whole crew is going to be joining me in Mobile as we will cover the Senior Bowl wall to wall as well. And so make sure if you're catching this show for the one-off because you're a fan of any of these teams that are playing, subscribe to the channel because we're going to have the best draft coverage that you've ever seen over the last over the next week. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we always really enjoy those 2 events. Appreciate everybody watching and listening to another episode of the PFF NFL show. We'll see you guys after these games for the recap show next week. See you then.